Here are the top stories for today. The celebrated case of MEDICARD Philippines versus CIR has held that for tax assessment to be valid, it must be authorized by the CIR himself or by his duly authorized representative through a letter of authority. The circumstances contemplated under Section 6, where the taxpayer may be assessed through best evidence obtainable, inventory taking, or surveillance, among others, are simply methods of examining the taxpayer in order to arrive at the correct amount of taxes.
For purposes of claiming tax refunds, the reckoning point of the period of prescription will be comprehensively discussed in the case of BPI versus CIR. Additionally, the 2-year prescriptive period to claim refunds commences to run only from the time the refund is ascertained, which can only be determined after a final adjustment return is accomplished. Find out more about the prescriptive period of claiming refunds in the case of CIR versus Philom Life Insurance Corporation.
To shed light on local taxation, the Local Autonomy Act considerably enlarged the sphere of autonomy of chartered city in the enactment of taxing measures. It is sufficiently plenary to cover everything, including a local percentage tax on the production of centrifugal sugar and on the gross sales of its byproducts, as it does not suffer from any constitutional or statutory infirmity.
On the other hand, the grant of taxing powers to local government unit under the Constitution and the Local Government Code does not affect the power of Congress to grant exemptions to certain persons, pursuant to a declared national policy. The legal effect of the constitutional grant to local governments simply means that in interpreting statutory provisions on municipal taxing powers, doubts must be resolved in favor of municipal corporations.
RA 1125 created the Court of Tax Appeals. How is it different from the Court of Appeals? Learn more about the jurisdiction of the CTA in the case of CIR versus Ayala Securities.
And to top our today's list, let's find out if the Commissioner of Customs has the power to review over seizure and protest cases by virtue of the Memorandum Order number 20-87 in the case of YAOKASIN versus Commissioner of Customs.
This is your #1 provider of Revitalizing Tax News, where we give you the latest tax updates and the best landmark cases. This is REVI News, live all the way from Eastern Visayas. Here are your anchors, JB Saoy and Queenie Babante.
First on today's list is about the letter of authority as required for the conduct of tax examination. Is the letter of notice enough to comply with the LOA requirement, arguing that the use of computers to detect discrepancies dispenses with the requirement of LOA? To give more about this novel case, May is on the other line. May.
Thank you, JB. The gist of the case is mainly on the differences or similarities of the letter of notice to the letter of authority. The case started when MEDICARD was ordered by the CTA to pay the CIR the VAT deficiency at 220 million pesos plus 20% interest per annum from January 27, 2007. Finding some discrepancies between the MEDICARD's income tax return and VAT returns, the CIR informed MEDICARD and issued a letter of notice. A preliminary assessment notice was issued against MEDICARD for deficiency VAT. A final assessment notice was received by MEDICARD on January 4, 2008 for alleged deficiency VAT for taxable year 2006 in the total amount of 196,614,476.69 inclusive of penalties. More importantly, MEDICARD raised the issue of lack of letter of authority on the part of the revenue officer who conducted the examination. The CIR, on the other hand, posits that the letter of notice is enough compliance with the letter of authority requirement, arguing that the use of computers to detect discrepancies dispenses with the requirement of the letter of authority. Furthermore, the CIR argued that the amounts earmarked and eventually paid by MEDICARD to medical service providers form part of gross receipts for VAT purposes. The CTA and bank sided with the CIR. The court now resolves the issue. Can the letter of notice replace the letter of authority requirement? What is the status of the assessment? The Supreme Court ruled that no, the letter of notice cannot replace the letter of authority requirement. A letter of authority is the authority given to the appropriate revenue officer assigned to perform assessment functions. In the absence of such an authority, the assessment or examination is a nullity. The letter of notice cannot replace the letter of authority required under the law, even if the same was issued by the CIR himself. Under RR number 12-2002, a letter of notice is issued to a person found to have underreported sales or receipts per data generated under the relief system. Upon receipt of the letter of notice, a taxpayer may avail of the BIR's voluntary assessment and abatement program. If a taxpayer fails or refuses to avail of the said program, the BIR may avail of administrative and criminal remedies, particularly closure, criminal action, or audit and investigation. Since the law specifically requires an LOA and RMO number 32-2005 requires the conversion of the previously issued letter of notice to a letter of authority, the absence thereof cannot be simply swept under the rug, as the CIR would have it. In fact, Revenue Memorandum Circular number 40-2003 considers a letter of notice as a notice of auditor or investigation only for the purpose of disqualifying the taxpayer from amending his returns. The revenue officers not having authority to examine MEDICARD in the first place, the assessment issued by the CIR is inescapably void. Another question posited is that, can the letter of authority requirement be dispensed with, considering that MEDICARD's books have not been physically examined? The Supreme Court ruled no. The letter of authority requirement cannot be dispensed with even if MEDICARD's books have not been physically examined. Section 6 of the NARC requires an authority from the CIR or from his duly authorized representatives before an examination of a taxpayer may be made. The requirement of authorization is therefore not dependent on whether the taxpayer may be required to physically open his books and financial records, but only on whether a taxpayer is being subject to examination. A letter of authority cannot be dispensed with just because none of the financial books or records being physically kept by MEDICARD was examined. That's all for this case. Back to studio.
Thank you, May, for enlightening us about the letter of authority. The case of YAOKASIN versus Commissioner of Customs after the short break.
Hello, Reviners! This is JONAH CHIKADORA to give you the latest Chika. Jollibee Foods Corporation closed down a branch of its fast food chain in Bonifacio Global City for 3 days after a customer posted a complaint online. Ooh, juicy! A Facebook post posted by Elite Paris last June 2 says she ordered a fried chicken through a food delivery app late Tuesday, June 1, but discovered that it was deep fried towel. OMG!
Chicken looks like a normal chicken. Wow.
Her post goes viral on social media with over 2.5 million views and has reached other platforms as well. In a statement, Jollibee says it is deeply concerned over the incident and will conduct a thorough investigation. As a result, Jollibee directed the said branch to close for 3 days to thoroughly review its compliance with procedures and retrain its store team to ensure that this
will not happen again. Under RA 10611 or the Food Safety Act, establishments which have not prepared food in accordance with acceptable manufacturing practices can be slammed with a 100,000 peso fine and 1 month suspension of operations for the first offense. Oh my gosh, this is really juicy chica, juicy chicken joy, juicy fried chicken towel. OMG! Be updated with the latest chica only with JONAH CHIKADORA. See ya!
And we're back! The next interesting topic is about the power of the Commissioner of Customs to hold review power over seizure and protest cases by virtue of the memorandum it issued. However, petitioner is contesting its validity not having been published in the official gazette. To shed light about this case, Ralph is on the other line. Ralph?
Thank you, Queenie. In this case, the review power of the Commissioner of Customs by virtue of Memorandum 20-87 is being questioned by the petitioner for not being published in the official gazette as required by law. It all started when the Philippine Coast Guard seized 9,000 sacks of refined sugar owned by petitioner YAOKASIN, which were then being unloaded from the MV Tacloban and turned them over to the custody of the Bureau of Customs. On June 7, 1988, the District Collector of Customs ordered the release of the cargo to the petitioner, but this order was subsequently reversed on June 15, 1988. The reversal was by virtue of Customs Memorandum Order 20-87 in implementation of the Integrated Reorganization Plan under PD1, which provides that in protest and seizure cases where the decision is adverse to the government, the Commissioner of Customs has the power of automatic review. Petitioner objected to the enforcement of Section 12 of the plan and CMO 20-87, contending that these were not published in the official gazette. The plan, which was part of PD1, was however published in the official gazette. The issue now presented in the Supreme Court is whether or not circular orders such as CMO 20-87 need to be published in the official gazette to take effect. The court ruled in the negative, it being an administrative order issued only to specific class of persons. Section 12 of the plan applies to petitioner's shipment of 9,000 bags of sugar. Taxes being the lifeblood of the government, Section 12, which the Commissioner of Customs in this Custom Memorandum Order number 20-87 enjoined all collectors to follow strictly, is intended to protect the interests of the government in the collection of taxes and customs duties in those seizure and protest cases which, without the automatic review provided therein, neither the Commissioner of Customs nor the Secretary of Finance would probably ever know about. Without the automatic review by the Commissioner of Customs and the Secretary of Finance, a collector in any of our country's far-flung ports would have absolute and unbridled discretion to determine whether goods seized by them are locally produced, hence not dutiable or of foreign origin and therefore subject to payment of customs duties and taxes. His decision, unless appealed by the aggrieved party, which is the owner of the goods, would become final with no one the wiser except himself, the owner of the goods. The owner of the goods cannot be expected to appeal the collector's decision when it is favorable to him. A decision that is favorable to the taxpayer would correspondingly be unfavorable to the government. But who will appeal the collector's decision in that case? Certainly, it's not the collector. Section 12 of the plan and Section 2313 of the Tariff and Customs Code do not conflict with each other. They may coexist. Section 2313 of the Code provides for the procedure for the review of the decision of the collector in seizure and protest cases upon appeal by the aggrieved party, that is, the importer or owner of the goods. On the other hand, Section 12 of the plan refers to the general procedure in appeals in seizure and protest cases with a special proviso on automatic review when the collector's decision is adverse to the government. Section 2313 of the proviso in Section 12, although they both relate to the review of the seizure and protest cases, refer to two different situations: when the collector's decision is adverse to the importer or owner of the goods, and when the decision is adverse to the government. Article 2 of the Civil Code, which requires laws to be published in the Official Gazette, does not apply to CMO number 20-87, which is only an administrative order of the Commissioner of Customs addressed to his subordinates, which are the customs collectors. Commonwealth Act number 638 enumerates what shall be published in the Official Gazette, besides legislative acts and resolutions of a public nature of the Congress of the Philippines. Executive and administrative orders and proclamations shall also be published in the Official Gazette, except such as have no general applicability. CMO number 20-87, requiring collectors of customs to comply strictly with Section 12 of the plan, is an issuance which is addressed only to particular persons or class of persons. In this case, it refers to the customs collectors. It need not be published on the assumption that it has been circularized to all concerned. Back to studio.
Thank you, Ralph.
And that's all for today's program. For more tax updates, always tune in to REVI News.
We make sure to always give you revitalizing tax news.
This is JB Saoy.
And this is Queenie Babante.
Stay safe and have a good day.